Ice Age. The wind howled like a hungry wolf outside, rattling the windows and their frames. Inside, huddled around a small fire, were 5 people, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. Their expressions were grim, their eyes reflecting the dancing shadows, each lost in thought. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackling fire and the wind's mournful song. Suddenly, one of them, a young man with determined eyes, spoke up, his voice low and urgent. "We have to leave tonight. There are too many of them here. We can't hide anymore." His words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the danger they all faced. The others nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. They had no choice but to flee. Trusting the young man's lead, they packed what little they could carry, weapons ready for any eventuality. As the moon climbed higher in the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape, they slipped out into the darkness, their silhouettes disappearing into the shadows. They melted away into the night, their footsteps muffled by the thick snow, their breaths forming fleeting clouds in the frigid air. You might be thinking this is a scene from some post-apocalyptic movie. Well, guess what? This is reality. Humanity is facing a serious threat. Global warming, melting glaciers and rising sea levels are just some of the challenges we face. And scientists warn that if we don't change course, we could trigger irreversible changes to our planet. But what if instead of global warming, Mother Nature had something else in store for us? What if suddenly the climate starts to change rapidly, shifting into a completely different direction than we're used to? That's what happens in today's story. It all began with an inexplicable shift in the atmosphere. Meteorologists were baffled by sudden and drastic changes in weather patterns. Unpredictable storms ravaged coastal cities, crops withered in the fields, and unseasonable blizzards swept across the land. People wondered if the end times were upon them. Within 6 or 7 days, the average temperature dropped to a brutal 40 degrees Celsius. It felt like the sun had been extinguished in the sky, plunging the earth into an icy tomb. The wind carried the biting chill deep into the bones, stealing the warmth from even the most robust shelters. Panic spread faster than the freezing cold. People scurried around like ants, seeking refuge against the sudden onslaught of winter. However, nowhere seemed safe. Homes were not sanctuaries anymore. Schools, offices, and shops turned into death traps. Cars abandoned on roads became icy coffins. Snow fell relentlessly, blanketing entire cities under a thick layer of white. It piled up against buildings, burying street lamps and shrouding everything in a thick, silent layer. The world was frozen in an instant. The familiar rhythm of life ceased to exist. Streets that once bustled with activity became ghostly pathways. Parks, playgrounds, and bustling markets transformed into eerie, deserted landscapes. The cold claimed countless lives, turning streets into impromptu morgues. Bodies wrapped in white shrouds lay beneath white blankets on sidewalks, their faces pale and lifeless. Families were torn apart as the harsh conditions separated loved ones. Parents held on to their children tightly, shielding them with their bodies against the biting cold. Husbands and wives shared scant body heat, their love a lifeline in the face of death. And amidst the chaos, opportunistic gangs emerged, seizing any opportunity to exploit the suffering of others. They roamed the streets, preying on the weak and defenseless. 2 years passed, marked by bone-chilling winters and dwindling hope. Food and fuel became scarce, forcing people to make unimaginable sacrifices. In the struggle for survival, human relationships were put to the ultimate test. Amidst this desolate landscape, there was a small community of survivors trying to stay afloat. They were ordinary people who banded together, sharing their meager resources and supporting each other in the face of adversity. Among them was a young man with a quiet strength and a kind heart. He worked tirelessly to protect his community, his determination unwavering despite the harsh conditions. One day, news reached the community about a potential threat from a nearby settlement. The young man's girlfriend, a woman with a mysterious past, suggested that they should reach out to the neighboring settlement to form an alliance. However, the community leader, a grizzled old man who had seen the worst of humanity during the collapse, opposed the idea. He had lost his son to the brutality of other survivors and refused to trust anyone outside their community. Despite the warnings, the young man believed in the importance of unity and decided to visit the neighboring settlement alone. However, he was unaware that his girlfriend harbored a dark secret. Unbeknownst to him, she was secretly a member of a ruthless gang that had been watching the community. As soon as the young man left, she went to the radio tower to contact the gang leader. When the gang arrived at the settlement, it was the young man's girlfriend who let them in through a secret tunnel that she had discovered while working with the community. She led the gang to the leader of the community, who was captured and taken outside. There, in front of the horrified eyes of the community members, the gang leader viciously beat the old man to death. The young man's girlfriend watched impassively, revealing her true colors. She didn't care about the suffering she caused. Her only concern was her own survival. She wanted to claim the young man's share of the resources for herself. But when the young man returned, he witnessed the gruesome scene. Filled with anger and betrayal, he attacked the gang leader. However, the gang overpowered him and dragged him away to a shed. The young man could hear screams and moans coming from inside the shed, but no one from the community dared to intervene. After some time, the sound of a gunshot echoed through the air. The next morning, the young man's worst fears were confirmed. His body was found lying in a pool of blood, his eyes wide with terror, his chest bearing the mark of a bullet. His girlfriend stood nearby, nonchalantly sipping a cup of tea, no remorse or sadness on her face. In her eyes, there was only indifference. As he lay there, the young man made a vow. If given a second chance, he would return and take his revenge. Just then, a strange sensation washed over him. It was as though time itself was rewinding, pulling him back from the brink of death. The world around him started to spin, and he felt himself being pulled into a swirling vortex. As he tumbled through this cosmic whirlpool, images flashed before his eyes, fragmented memories of a life lived and lost. He saw his childhood home, the loving smile of his parents, and the first time he laid eyes on his beloved. Then he saw the fateful day when the world changed, the biting cold, the desperate struggle for survival, and finally, the betrayal and his gruesome demise. Each memory a sharp shot of pain in his heart, and then, as abruptly as it began, it stopped. The young man found himself lying in a hospital bed, his body aching and his mind filled with a strange sense of clarity. He was alive, but not in the world he remembered. Looking out the window, he saw cars zooming by, people going about their daily lives. Confused, he checked his phone, which showed that he was 3 years in the past. Realizing that he had been given a second chance, the young man wasted no time. He immediately contacted his friends, warning them about the impending disaster. Together they began preparing for the coming freeze, gathering supplies and reinforcing their homes against the harsh weather. But, amidst the preparations, the young man couldn't shake off the memory of his past life. Haunted by the betrayal of the woman he once loved, he knew he had to do more than just survive. He wanted revenge. So he set out to find her, driven by an insatiable need for justice. As the young man embarked on his journey, he realized that surviving the upcoming winter was only the beginning. The real challenge was to navigate the complexities of human relationships in a world teetering on the edge of destruction. With the lessons of the past weighing heavily on his heart, the young man was determined to use his second chance wisely. He would not only fight for his own survival, but also seek retribution for those who had suffered at the hands of the ruthless gang. The stage was set for an epic tale of survival, revenge, and the indomitable spirit of humanity in the face of unimaginable challenges. As the clock ticked, each day bringing him closer to the fateful event that had shattered his world, the young man knew that time was of the essence. He had to act quickly, to forge alliances, gather resources, and most importantly, to expose the sinister plot that had befallen his community. The stakes were high, the dangers lurking around every corner, but the young man was ready to face it all. Fueled by a burning desire for justice, he was determined to rewrite the ending, to ensure that this time, he and his loved ones would not just survive, but thrive. Hey guys, what do you think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. And that's all for today. See you next time.